And
all right. So the first question is, are any of you familiar with Abacus, used it before, currently or previously using any kind of a practice management solution, or is this a completely brand new sort of paradigm for you guys?
it's the first kind of, we used to use Immigrant Professional.
Okay.
Nothing outside of that.
Okay. And was there some specific things that you wanted to know about Abacus today, or did you want to kind of go over the basics of how to use the application itself? Just want to get a sense of what your goal is for today so we can focus on what you want to see.
So we'll start with the basics would be best.
Okay. Well, the application is a relational database, and all that really means is your names, your cases or matters, and your events, if appropriate, excuse me for just a moment, are all linked to each other. So if you're looking at a matter, such as, let's open any matter and see what it looks like. So the people that are linked to or involved in the case are linked to it. So if you needed to call Pablo, you know, I can immediately open Pablo's record and call him up because now I have access to his phone numbers. So not only do we have all of the specific details of this case, we have all of the people who are involved in the case. We have notes, if there are any, they'd be here. The calendar activities of what needs to be done, what has been done, will all be shown under the linked events for this case. Any documents that have been prepared, and it looks like there's a lot of stuff already in here, so who's been doing the input?
I have, Moises.
Okay, so it looks like you've already got a pretty good handle on how the linking aspect of the program works, and we can go through the process of how you set up case files in a minute. Same with emails. Any email communications, if you communicate via email with the integration with Outlook, when you send an email, it'll automatically put a copy of that email in the client record. So what that means is you no longer have to worry about going into Outlook and then dragging and dropping you know, the respective emails into, maybe you've got some sort of folder structure you put together with all of your clients' names and, you know, hundreds of folders running down the left side of your Outlook program. You won't have to do that because when you do email, it's going to automatically put a copy in this record. So what will happen is the email will open, and when you send it, let me do this. I'll send it to myself. What's going to happen here in a few seconds if everything is set up correctly? Let's see, sent. Okay, so it's already linked. It's already linked to cost of processing of this cancel. Okay, I'm not why I'm not seeing it here, but the email would show up here in this folder. And again, we'll have to take a look at that a little bit later, see why it's not showing up there, because it is showing as being linked. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to refresh. It just depends sometimes on your system. And there it is. So it just took a few seconds for it to actually link. Once you start using it on a regular basis, it should be instantaneous for that to show up. So you see now that you have this email, this is a separate copy from the one that's in Outlook. So what that means is you don't, again, have to have some kind of massive folder structure over here. And if I delete this email, I still have the copy in Abacus. And it'll always use the date and time stamp of when the email was sent. And conversely, if you receive an email that needs to be linked to a particular case file, when you highlight it, you can say link to Abacus and select the name and or matter to link it to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Because it does not attempt to link all emails when they come in, because a significant percentage of what you receive is not case related. You may get spam, you get humorous cat videos from your partners, you get stuff that has nothing to do with cases, so it does not try to link every incoming email. But when you do receive an email, if it recognizes the email address of your client, when you say link to Abacus, it'll already have the name and or matter suggested in here for you. So, and if you want to change it, you can change it, but it will say, John Smith, Smith v. Jones, if it recognizes the email. So you don't have to go through the process of selecting it. Now, did you use the intake form to set up the case files?
This specific one I don't remember, but I have used intakes, yeah.
Okay. Well, the intake form is designed to give you a single point of input for your initial case files and the parties that are involved, because what it does is it presents you with an intake screen where you can put in all of the information about the case, and because immigration is so detailed, this is a very lengthy and detailed intake form. Then gives you a place to put information about, in this case, the employer, the alien, and so on. And as you go through this intake form and you fill out all of the requested information, that you have at the time, you don't have to fill out every field. Not every field is mandatory, so you don't have to worry if you don't, maybe have all of the information when you first do this. Once you fill this out with all of the parties involved, alien father, alien mother, and so on, and you say create the records, what you end up with is the case file. All of those people that it was asking about in the intake form will have created those name records and in turn link them to the case file as the appropriate link type, whether it's applicant or petitioner or beneficiary, whatever it is that the intake form asked you to fill out. And it'll probably, in most cases, set up a new immigration case file, which is, do a conflicts of interest, draft a letter of confirmation letter, draft a fee contract, the basic administration stuff. So the intake form is a kind of a method to automate the initial process of setting up a new case file. That's its purpose, because you can certainly go through the process of setting up a case file manually by saying, I want to add a matter, filling it out and saving that. At that point, no parties are involved or linked to that case. Then you can go over to names and start adding the parties who are involved and link them manually. But what we've done is we've created this intake form process to kind of automate that whole system into a single point of input. So the initial process is faster and automates all the parties and the linking stuff for you. And once you've done that, then you can start to schedule any additional tasks that need to be done on the case. As I said, the intake form will typically create, if it's an immigration, it'll set up some standard administrative tasks for setting up a new immigration case, running a conflicts check, opening the file, the confirmation letter, and the fee contract. And at that point, if you need to add additional tasks as you process this case, in this area under linked events, you can right-click and say, I want to add a new event, such as, I've got to prepare some documents, I have to do a request for this or that. And when you say add an event, you'll be presented with an event screen to fill out. And you'll notice that as I add the event from this matter, it's already got that filled out because it's going to be linked to that matter. So the rest of the information is, I think, pretty self-explanatory with regards to events. Who's responsible for the task? What is the task? And any place there's a drop-down list, there's going to be, predefined choices for, what is this task? Is it a meeting, a client conference? Is it document preparation? Is it a settlement offer? Whatever it is, you select it from this list. When is it supposed to happen? One of the nice features about any of the date fields is, for example, let's say this is something you have to do in a week's time. If I hit the letter W, it's going to, whoops, let me hit, I had my shift key on. W, it'll go a week in the future. If I hit M for M, it'll do a month in the future. Y will do it a year at a time. D will do 1 day at a time. T will bring me back to today's date. And if I put on my caps lock, it'll go backwards. So if it's a week in the past, again, the same thing. W, M for month, Y for year, D for day, T for today's date. What time is this supposed to happen? Is it at, say, 10 o'clock? It's for an hour here in the office. So it's pretty straightforward. You just fill it out, and when you save it, it'll show up as an event displayed under the case file, but also it will show up on the calendar. So if we go to, says you've got events here scheduled for, looks like 2 years in the past. So if we go to, well, let me add an event very quickly here so you can see. I add an event. Who's responsible? I will say produce. And I'm going to say it's a meeting with a client, so I'm going to say meeting today at 10 o'clock for 1 hour here. I'm going to say save. So I've added that event, and it's under this particular matter. But if I go to the calendar, you're also going to see the event on the calendar because that's the day it's supposed to fall on. So when you first open the program, typically what you're first going to see is your calendar. Everybody wants to see their calendar when they first turn on the program because they want to know, what do I have to do today? What are my appointments? What are my upcoming deadlines, which will show up probably under reminders? Do I have any pending things to do, which can be anything that's not date specific but is something that needs to be attended to, so they roll forward every day until you actually mark them done, and then they disappear from the calendar. They're not deleted, they just no longer display on the calendar. So if I right-click this event and I say mark done, it's going to disappear from the calendar, right? But it has not disappeared from the client's record, it's just now marked done. Because it's done, the calendar doesn't need to display it anymore, but you still have the record of having done it under the linked events for this particular matter. So you know it's done because it has a letter D, but as a visual clue, it also kind of turned it a pale gray. So it's kind of a quick way at a glance to know whether or not you completed a task. I'm going to go ahead and delete that because obviously that's not really an event for this person. Yes. Now you guys have the billing version of Abacus, which means you can bill for notes, you can bill for events, you can bill for documents, and you can bill for emails. So you can see there's a bill button on all of those different screens. And when you do bill for something, you will see a $ next to that activity, which is what this little column represents. So if you don't see a $, this has not been paid for. Now, if you're doing flat fee, then that may be immaterial as far as the way you do your billing. If you do any kind of hourly billing, then whenever you actually hit the bill button, it'll create a time ticket, and it will then, Okay, it's not been set up in billing. Oh, let's go see if that's the reason why that is. Link names. Okay. So one thing that hasn't been done yet, which is important if you're going to be doing billing and want your information about your matters to go to billing, is you have to link your client as the bill to. The link type for your client needs to be bill to. So if I say, now is your client Pablo or Carla or who's the client?
Pablo, the petitioner.
Okay. So if I say add a link, and it's this guy, Pablo, right? So first I'm going to link him as the client, just so we know he's the client. And I'm going to link him again as the bill to. And this is what will is this number some kind of numbering sequence you guys are using?
I think they would auto-generate those IDs.
Okay, and what's going to happen in a second is you're going to see the accounting summary screen is going to pop up. And what this screen allows you to do is set up the initial accounting information. Okay? So what kind of a case is this? Is it an hourly billing case?
Usually they're flat fees. Most of the cases here are charged on a flat fee basis.
Okay. So you'd say, okay, this is a flat fee case, and is there a fee? What's the fee?
They vary. We could just put like 800 as a
okay.
example.
So if I were to fill this out, make whatever changes and say done, what would happen is that this matter would then get pushed over to the billing and accounting side, so you can in turn then generate statements or bills or do any of the accounting stuff you want to do with this case. But I'm not actually going to do it. I'm going to hit cancel just because I don't know. You probably want to come back to this and set it up exactly the way you actually do want it. So I'm going to say no. So when you do come back and you want to say, I do want to put this over to the billing side, all you have to do is, because it's already linked as the bill to, just say edit on bill to and done, and it'll open that accounting summary screen again. And it's looking for the initials RP instead of the name Rafael. That's why it's giving me that message. And again, once you fill that out and hit done, it'll push this matter over into the billing side. And then you can bill your notes, your events, your documents, and emails. So if I want to bill for the email, you'd say yes, and it would open up a time ticket. Let's go see what's going on your billing side, if there's anything over there. Okay, so it looks like a couple have come over. So that means in your database, Flores Reyes, there's somebody linked as the bill to, and this case is now in the matters into the accounting side of the program. And if I open that, you can see again the specific details of this particular matter. What kind of billing is it? Monthly, hourly, flat fee, as I showed you before. The rates, which you can set using the rate level, each timekeeper can have up to 25 different rates. If you have hourly rates, more than one, you can have 25 different rates. And how you set the rates on each of the timekeepers is File, Setup, Timekeeper Codes. Now, this is probably something the administrator is going to do. Obviously, not everybody that may be participating in this training will actually ever go in and do any of this specifically, but the timekeeper codes is where you input, all of the people that are timekeepers that are going to do billing, whether it's attorneys or paralegals, whoever's going to be able to generate a ticket, they get added here. And when you add somebody, you'll get a screen where you type in their name, their initials, what their division is, job title, and you'll see a screen where you can have up to 25 rates if necessary. Most people usually have 1, 2, or 3, but you can have up to 25 different rates if necessary. Okay, so we're back to this side of the program where most of you are going to spend the majority of your time, because this is where you're going to do all of the work with regards to your cases. Everything you're going to do is going to be input and recorded here. The case file is going to be kind of the center of everything because you're working on the case and you need to know who's involved in the case, what needs to be done on the case. Did I generate documents? Do I need to update documents? Do I need to associate a document with this file? I can add a document by saying add, and you basically select the document you want to link to this case file, which in turn gives you a linked document which you can then open. And it's going to open here in a second, it looks like. Yep, there we go. Do you have a second monitor?
Not attached to it, but I could set one up right now if you want.
No, I clicked on open that file and it's not. Oh, well, there we go. It's just taking a little time. Okay. So it opened the document. It looks like in this case the document is a blank document. Let me close that and try that again. Close. Open.
There might not be a current link to that file server
Okay.
that we used. So maybe that's why it's not showing up. Oh, it's weird.
Okay, here's one. So we can see that this is a contract between sponsor and household member that was drafted, and it's linked to this case file. So what that means is if you ever need to revisit a document, make changes to it, continue working on it, instead of going to your File Explorer and then browsing down some folder tree to get to the document you're looking for, all you have to do is go to the case file to link documents, find the document you want to open, and open it. And if you ever need to refer to an email, you can come to the Emails tab and you say, yes, we did send you an email on this date at this time. I can resend it again. If you want, I can forward you a copy because here's the original email. Now with immigration, you have lots of additional tabs, work residence information, family information, educational, miscellaneous, military, and miscellaneous, because the immigration is one of the most detailed of the practice packs that we offer. It looks like in your matters, you've got immigration, and what was the other one I saw? Did I see something different? So if we open this one, which looks like guardianship, then we should see a significantly different screen. Yeah. So we have a guardianship screen, and it's the same process. You use the intake forms, but instead of the immigration, you use, what would that be?
Family, probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's inside family.
Come on.
The fourth, I think, one. Fifth one. Oh, instead of abacus family, it's the second from the bottom. Guardian.
Okay, yeah. So using that intake form, obviously, it gives you a different screen for doing the intake. The one we looked at first was immigration. Now we can take a look at the guardianship, and you can see it's, it's completely different. It needs a little bit less information about the case, and then it's who's the petitioner and so on. And again, when you create the records and close, you get your case file. Seem to have lost my control of the screen here. There we go. So what I was showing you so far about the basics of setting up a case file, was that pretty clear? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, some of the other things you do with the program, as we looked at earlier again, is your calendar is going to probably be the first thing you see when you open the program. And I apologize for the slowness. I can't seem to, the response time seems to be really slow when I'm clicking on things on my end. So it may look like I'm hesitating, but I'm waiting for my mouse to, there we go, turn around and respond after I've clicked on something. So when you first start on the program, you're going to see your calendar, and it's going to have all of your appointments, which is anything that has a specific time and date. Reminders will be anything that's coming up in the near future, and how reminders are typically generated is when you add an event. We're going to do meeting again, and I'm going to say in, let's see, today, 1, 2, 3, 4. In 4 days, we have a meeting, okay? And it's going to be at 11 o'clock, an hour, here in the office. If I come down here and I say 4 days and 2 days, that means that 4 days before and 2 days before this date, I want reminders. So if I hit save, there's that first reminder because I scheduled it for 4 days in the future, and I said I want the first reminder to be 4 days beforehand. So you see how it put the reminder? And if I go forward 2 days, there should be another reminder. There it is. So you see it telling me in 2 days, basically, because on 1/9 is the actual meeting, and this reminder's 2 days before. So events gives you 2 built-in reminders, which is a nice feature because you may want certain things to be, to kind of give you a heads up a day or 2 beforehand because they may be something that's going to require a specific amount of your time and or preparation before it actually happens. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, okay. Now, as far as the documents, as far as generating your forms, if you're doing immigration, you probably already have the immigration forms in there, so let me go see if they're in there. Okay, so yeah, you do have your immigration forms. That's part of the immigration package. So what that means for you is that anytime you need to generate any of these forms, all you do is first go to the matter you want to use as the file to populate the form. You select the form and you say fill the form, and it'll fill out most of the fields for you already because all of them are already pre-mapped for the most part. So let me go ahead and close that for just a second and actually go to an immigration matter. Now if I go back to the forms library and I were to say fill that form, and now it's going to be filled out. And again, it's going to depend on how much of the information was filled out in the matter itself is going to determine how many of the fields are filled out. So I may be using a matter that's inappropriate for this type of case because it's only showing, well, you see the family name's already filled out. And anything else that you need to fill out on the fly, you can then fill it out. Apply surety standards. If I say fill this form, okay, so Hurtado, Rivero, date of birth, country of birth, and so on. Now when I finish filling this out, I can do save, and it's going to automatically put this document, it's going to save it and link it to that case number. And it's going to put it in a folder under this case number. Now, depending on your preferences, you can change the way the program saves your documents under settings. Most people prefer that the folders that it sets up and the files that it sets up use the name of the matter. That's, most people are more likely to remember it's, Hurtado, whatever versus some case number, but that's up to you. So if you prefer that whenever you create a document, it creates a folder based on, in this case, say, Rivero Hurtado, it makes a folder called Rivero Hurtado versus a folder called 1252. Now, would you prefer it to be matter?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll say matter, and you say the file name, same deal. We want it to start with, Rivero Hurtado, and then it'll say, request for asylum or whatever the form name is.
This won't affect the linking of previous links? Like if we had
No.
it, okay.
No, it's not going to affect that.
Right.
So that's how forms work. Now, you can bring your own forms into the library. You can set up your own, like if you've got standard letters that you send out that aren't immigration forms or like standard Word documents that you generate over and over again, you just keep changing the personal information. You can bring those into the library. You can add your own documents. And you basically just browse to the location of the document you want to bring into the library. And I don't know if I have any. Let's see if I can find Let's say this is the document I want to bring into the library. I'm not going to, but let's pretend this is the one. If I were to say open it, it's going to ask me, do you want to make a copy of it or do you want to move it? I usually say copy because most people want to leave their originals where they are. So if I were to say copy, what I'll end up with is this box, which I'm going to click on here, is for edit. Come on. Seem to have lost the mouse again. Can you click on edit on your end?
Unedited. If something popped up, editing application by refugee. Is that what you want to see, or?
I don't see that. It's like it. There we go. Okay. Okay. It's coming up. We're having a real bandwidth issue here with this remote text. There we go. Okay. So when you add a document, what it says is, okay, the original document name was this. You can change it if you want to, and it's going to give it a form ID. Again, you can change that if you want to. The form ID is what it puts at the end of the document name, and usually, especially like with immigration forms, it's got the ID number of the, the federally assigned form ID. So if you were to put in here, this is the cheeseburger form, you could say the form ID is CHZBRG1. Okay? And then it wants to know where do you want to put the document. The category is the folder you want to put that document in. And you can set up your own folders. So again, if you have documents that are like requests or demands or responses and you want to set up specific folders for all of the documents that are all requests or demands, that kind of thing, I can add my own folder called, requests or demands or whatever, and then it will put that document into that folder. And then you can have subfolders such as, jurisdiction, type of document, and so on, so you can have it. As you can see, there are several levels of, let me close this. You can see, in this case, these documents are in federal all immigration. So it's in this category, this jurisdiction, and this type. So that's why you've got these three subfolders for all of your immigration forms. Now, for your purposes, the one thing you will have to select, because if you're dealing with an immigration case, is this thing called the ALF file. And, I don't need to go into too much detail about it, but it's basically the file that tells Word or WordPerfect what fields you have available when you're doing a form letter. And if you leave it blank, it will always use the abacus or the default ALF. So you don't have to select one, and you'll still have the default fields available. But since you're doing immigration, then there's a lot of additional fields that start with things like we've got people who are petitioners and applicants and all sort of things that are specific to immigration that you won't find in the abacus ALF. So you're going to want to select, if it's an immigration document, the immigration ALF file. And then the rest of the stuff below this, you don't really need to worry about too much. It's all kind of optional stuff, but again, it really doesn't have any bearing on most of the stuff you're going to be doing. So once you say save, that document that you had will then end up showing up in here. Then you'll be able to customize it. And I'm gonna open up the general forms folder here, and there's a document in here called a client deposition appointment letter, which is one I use quite a bit for demonstrating how you work with forms. So if I want to, so let's pretend this is a document that I just brought in from the Hurtado folder because it was a perfect request for information letter, except that it was personal to Mr. Hurtado. So now I have the document in here. I can go into the design mode, which is going to then open Word, in this case, and it's going to be set up so that I can then insert merge fields. So this is how you can put in, you know, the client's address, the name of the matter, and so on. So if I say preview the results, you're going to see, in this case, it's Alfaro Orellana, deposition schedule Jose, right? And that's because that's the file that I had, it's using as the sample data right now. So it's the client address and the name of the matter, right? So that's important. I'm going to close this right now. So you can see when I go to, you see it was using this this file because that's the file I was looking at. So I'm going to go to Gabriela Maria, and I'm going to go to Forms. I'm going to say fill the form just for a quick second so you can see that it's going to be that person's name and case number because that's the record I was in when I said print this letter. Now if I go back into design mode, it's the same letter except now I'm in the area where I can then customize it. I can now say, you know what? All right. So now I want to say, oh, what other information do I want in here? I want to add insert merge field. You know, I'd say the file matter, but it's already in here, the name of the case. So I'm going to say the file underscore underscore number, insert, close. So you see it's got the file number of the matter. Now, one thing about documents, the only thing you really need to know is two basic things. Anything that starts with the word file is a matter field. In other words, it's coming from the matter itself. Okay? Now, anything that starts with something like client or defendant or applicant or petitioner, that means the person's information you want is that person who's linked to the matter as the defendant or the client or the applicant or the petitioner. So that means I want to have Maria's information, so she's linked as the spouse. So the fields I would be looking for would be anything that starts with the word spouse, right? I don't actually have those, but if I did, I would go down and hit, I would scroll down to, spouse underscore last name, spouse underscore, first name. So then I would be assured that it would be Maria's information that would show up in the form letter. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, that's what the first half of any of the field is the link type for the people linked to the matter. So it's always like opposing attorney underscore, first name, and so on. Defendant underscore, first name. So that's how you specify a specific person linked to the matter is so that it knows whose information you want in that document. So the form letters are pretty easy to work with, pretty straightforward. And once you do that, you then have a document that at any point you can then go to a specific case or client record and you say fill the form. That's the case and client information it's going to use to fill out that form.
Instead of criminal defense, do you have immigration?
Yeah, the immigration forms are all here.
Okay.
All the immigration forms are here. And there are a lot of them. So the same thing applies with these, except most of them are already filled out because we do all of the field mapping for you ahead of time for the most part. Now there's obviously going to be fields in these documents that you're going to have to fill out manually on the fly because not every field is going to be automatically populated because some information isn't, you don't know until you're filling out the form. Now you can do, you can do customization to PDFs as well. Now again, most of your immigration forms you won't ever need to do any customization, but if you want to, you can. The only difference is when you want to add a field in a PDF, when you say add a field, you have to do one thing first before you add a field is you have to draw a space holder or a rectangle for it to, so it knows where to put the field. So now if I say run, which is the equivalent of preview in Word, you see it's putting in that information there.
For the NVC cases.
That's really the only difference, is because PDFs are basically a photograph, you have to, when you say add a field, draw the rectangle. It's basically a placeholder is all it is for the field. Okay, so we've looked at how you set up case files, which is the intake form is the best way to set up your case and client files initially because it automates that process. We've looked at how you schedule additional events or tasks for your case files and how they show up on the calendar. We showed you how you can add documents, link documents to a specific case file by clicking the Add button and browsing to the location of the document you want to link to this matter. We also looked at how you can use forms to auto-populate form letters and PDF documents. We've shown how the email integration allows you to send emails directly from the case or client file and how it puts a copy in the record for you. These are just additional tabs for information about, in this case, immigration. Now, blue links, these are hyperlinks, and all they really do is they show you, let's see if we have a screen where it says who the spouse is on one of these screens. Emily. Okay, so Maria is the spouse, correct? So we see her name here because this is a hyperlink, and all it's doing is showing me the person linked as the spouse without me having to click on linked names. It's basically a little bit of it's really a convenience. So it makes it easier for you to find information without having to, you don't have to leave the screen to see Maria's information, because the hyperlink is displaying that name for you without you having to click on that Link Names tab. It's also a quick way to say, you know what, I need to call Maria, so let me click it. It'll also open that record very quickly. So that's what the blue links are. Hyperlinks is what they're called. We've come up on an hour. Now, I don't know if you guys want to keep going and look at other stuff, or if you wanted to stop now and schedule another hour on a different day so your eyes aren't any more glazed over than it sounds like they already are.
Did you want to for another day, or?
Or if you have questions, you want to go over specific things that I haven't touched on, or you weren't clear on, we can do that as part of your 2 hours. It's totally up to you.
We'll work on what we have, and if we have any other issues, we'll close for the other hour. And then
we could speak later. Well, we'll work with what you've taught us today, and we could schedule the second hour on a future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, was this helpful to you guys? I always want to find out if I'm giving people information that is helpful and is in a manner that isn't too confusing.
I found it to be very helpful, especially the form designing aspect that I wasn't familiar with.
Okay. Yeah. So when you do immigration forms, the only thing to remember is
the ALF file.
The ALF file. If it's just a standard letter that's going to a client without a lot of other references, you don't have to select an ALF because it will always use the default ALF file.
Great.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for your time. I'll go ahead and end this meeting. And when you want to schedule that second hour, you can call me, or if you like, I can call you back in whatever the appropriate amount of time is.
I just have a quick question. What if a client has more than one type of case? How does that work?
Oh, you just link them to, you can link one name to as many cases as you want to.
Okay.
Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you were doing personal injury and you had sort of on retainer an expert witness in medical injuries. He's in your database as your expert witness, and he may be linked to 1,000 cases because he's always your go-to person for, courtroom testimony.
Okay.
It's just more often you're going to have multiple parties linked to a matter because there are usually several players involved in a case. But conversely, one person can be involved in many cases. And over time, like if you did criminal, you may have one client who's, just unlucky with the law, and he's got 10 or 20 cases over time. You've got one name record for him, but he's linked to as many cases as necessary.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's the real strength of relational databases. What it means is you don't have to keep putting the same client in over and over again every time there's a new case. You have one client record, however many cases they may have, and one case record, however many parties may be involved.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. I'll talk to you guys again.
All right, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.